My name is Aponte. I'm the music production specialist at the Weeks Music Library and part of Creative Studio at the University of Miami. I've been producing music for well over 10 years. Received my undergrad degree at Berklee College of Music for electronic production and sound design. After graduating, I worked in the advertisement industry as a music composer. I learned that the advertisement industry works really fast, and therefore I've had to develop my own productive workflow that allowed me to finish music quickly and effectively. To answer the question on the screen, what are creative strategies in music production? Creative strategies in music production are simply a concrete set of patterns that can be used to begin, further develop, and or complete a song or a track. These patterns help with discovering hidden ideas during the music making process. I understand that we're all at a different level of experience in music making, so I'll try not to get overly technical. So, using references. Everything we do every creative act that we do is usually taken from somewhere else. This goes for all forms of art. Music is an art form, just like writing, just like photography. Art is also a language that we use to communicate emotions, right? Just like we speak and we use our words, we learned how to speak using our references, right? And our references were probably our parents, then they became our friends, then it's just watching TV that we learned how to speak and use our own words. When it comes down to art, it's very similar. The concept of using a reference is very well practiced in all forms of art. In music, we reference other songs and we find our favored parts of the music that we like, and we combine them to create our own sort of unique vision. These influences become a part of our unconscious and sometimes conscious musical vocabulary. However, as we aim to create original music, we want to avoid using too much of our references to avoid verging on plagiarism. Reference material should be used as a guide to help with creative decisions and not to be taken too literally. Using multiple references helps us kind of broaden our possibilities and ensures that we don't end up creating something that is too similar. Having several options also gives us a deeper and cohesive understanding of what we are trying to achieve. So these are all what we call the musical elements of what would make up a song. So when we're listening to our references, we are actively listening. Your main focus is to literally just listen. What instruments does this particular reference have? What's the texture of the song? Is it kind of grainy, or does it sound lo-fi, or does it sound really nice and polished? What's the mood of the song? Is it a happy song? Is it melancholy? Is it sexy? Like, what's the general vibe of the song? The next is harmony. What's the key of the song? What types of chords are they using? Does the melody have a wide range? Does it change? Rhythm, does it have a very symmetrical drum beat, or is it very abstract? Is it 4 on the floor, like a dance beat? Are there any repeating patterns? Does it have any fills? The form, does the music evolve over time? Are the sections clear, or are they kind of fuzzy? Does the music clearly go from section to section, or is it unclear? Do the instruments change? I usually take 3 reference tracks. I try to make a sound alike of the rhythm, the harmony, and the form. And then using these 3 references, I create like a combination of the 3. By the time I have something that's cohesive, it tends to become its own thing, and it has its own identity by that point, because I'm using various influences. So, filling your canvas. Let's say you've already started producing a song. You have a pretty good loop going, but how do you continue? What I try to do is I fill up the entire canvas. By canvas, I mean my session. This is an additive process, so you're taking all the elements of your piece and you're adding on to it. In filling up your canvas, you have these 3 parts of a song that you could layer, right? So in the rhythm, try and layering your backbeats. You can break up the beat by adding fills. The harmony, you can add more chords, syncopated elements. You're adding on, you're filling it up. You can also chord progressions implied by several other instruments. You know, one voice could be doing this repeating phrase, and the other one, you have another voice doing. one chord being implied by various voices. For the melody, the more variations in melody that you have, the more interesting the song. You hear this in most pop music where the verses tend to be sung in a very small range, and in the chorus they sing it at a much wider range. What I like to do is I like to fill up the canvas, duplicate that loop, and then start subtracting. Building a narrative. When you are creating a song, you want to get it to where it's not just a pile of stuff, you're trying to get it to where it's an actual song. Building a narrative, I called it that because it's very similar to writing a story. So the structure of a good narrative, it develops with each chapter. It starts with an introduction, there's a conflict, there's the climax, and then there's the resolution. In music production and songwriting, all of these can be approached similarly. Pop music in general tends to have distinguishable parts, similar to a chapter in a story. The choruses tend to be the highest part of the song. The choruses tend to be synonymous with the song's hook. More experimental genres, such as like techno and other subgenres of electronic music, tend to focus more on mood and texture rather than this narrative build. However, they all share variation in common. So variation is key. You have all these parts in a song that are just constantly building on top of each other. You want to make sure that the whole beginning to end of your piece has enough variation to keep the listener listening from beginning to end. So here are other alternative forms. It doesn't really matter how complex the arrangement is. What matters is that it maintains interests. This is generally achieved through the use of variation and tension and release. When I say tension, I don't mean it as a negative thing. When we think of the word tension, we think of anxiety or things that it would be great not to have. In music, tension is that sense of anticipation and the impression that something is coming, which usually triggers our curiosity into wanting to know what's coming. What's next? An example of harmonic tension, for example, is that chord makes you want to go back here. It's like a sneeze, you know, that you want to just, it just comes back home. Dynamic tension is similar to the image that I have there, where it starts off very quiet and then slowly building to this big, giant climax part of the song. A great example of dynamic tension is in EDM music. Literally the whole formula of the genre is to build up to the drop, the satisfying release. Rhythmic tension, an example would be a song that has verses that are asymmetrical, maybe not so traditional, that eventually builds up into a symmetrical beat. Melodic tension is probably the one that is used the most common in a lot of pop music. Good examples would be, think of Nirvana's Smell Like Teen Spirit. It starts off quiet, and then in the chorus, he widens the melodic range in his voice. The arrangement tension, that is usually done a lot in classical music, where you have movements at the beginning that are soft and slow that eventually build into this bigger section. It could start off maybe almost ambient, and then it builds by introducing more rhythmic elements to the climax point. Collaboration. It's so easy to get burnt out on, your own music, and you're literally listening to the same thing over and over and over again. Having someone to bounce ideas off of really helps you get a better perspective. It's a great way also to overcome these roadblocks, because what you hear is not the same as what your collaborator is hearing. Both you and your collaborator are held accountable for the completion of the song. You ideally want a collaboration relationship with someone that counterbalances your strengths. So let's say you are good technically, so you know your way around the software, you're very good at the production process, but maybe you're not a good singer or an instrumentalist. You want to find someone to collaborate with that counterbalances your strengths. It really does help and fosters a symbiotic relationship where you both are helping each other and depending on each other. In response to filling your canvas being an additive process, this is more of a subtractive process where you're going back and you're polishing your track down to the essentials. You're going from a pile of stuff to a song. What you want your session to look like is more more so what the right image looks like. It's a little bit more crafted. Things just kind of come in and out. You want to finesse, and you want to go back and see what parts fit, what parts don't need to be there. It's a trial and error process. Thank you guys for listening to me. And so if you have any questions, please let me know.